Hello everybody. Welcome to another Friday Live. So today, 1st of August, new month. Definitely feeling like autumn is just around the corner. Weather's changed here. Still really beautiful today though. And speaking of beautiful, today is going to be the second layer on the yellow rose painting that I started last week. Not necessarily saying, of course, that the painting is beautiful, but the reference certainly is, the rose certainly is. So today, having got the first layer in, which if you're watching this and you haven't seen it, you can always go to the live tab on my YouTube channel, and it is, as I speak now, at least anyway, is the most recent live session. We simplified the rose down to 3 or 4 colors, I think it was. I think we mixed like four colors. Drastic simplification of the form. We made a little bowl and painted this rose. Just started adding some petals. So today I'm going to show you how you can, if you start with something like this, which you could take as a finished painting if you wanted to. Probably would have worked on it a little bit longer, maybe another hour or so. I think the last session was about 2 hours, a little bit less. Today I'm going to show you how you can, once the painting is touch dry, how you can go in and work on it some more, develop the rose a little bit further, develop kind of the feeling of the depth and the space a little bit more. So let's have a quick look at where the painting is at the moment. So this is painting as it stood at the end of last week. Hello everybody, good to see you all. Lots of people watching today. Thank you for coming, good to see you. So you can see, like, basically you can still see like how drastically simplified this is. It's just a bowl really with a little indentation in the middle. And I started working into it and adding a few kind of petals around the edge. It's all touch dry now. You know, it's very important that your painting is touch dry before you work on another layer. So first things first, I'm going to put my paints out. I'm actually a little bit behind setting up today. Usually I would have the paints out. The reason I don't is because I was sitting with Teddy, our rescue Labradoodle, sorry, who we just officially adopted 2 days ago. Sitting with him on the couch because we're spending a lot of time being close to him. And I fell asleep. And so did he. And then I woke up, suddenly remembered that I had to get set up and do a live stream. So I haven't got the paints out yet. So that's lead white. Okay. Actually, I'm going to put some titanium and lead. So titanium is just going to give me like going to allow me to get to a cooler bluish white more quickly for some areas around here. The yellow, obviously we're going to need plenty of that. This is Michael Harding cadmium yellow. Winsor & Newton cadmium yellow is a very, very different color. It's a kind of a, how can I describe it? It's basically an orange. Winsor & Newton cad yellow pale is much better. This is green gold. You can imagine, like, I think of this in mixing terms and in generally just in painting terms. If this is like the shadow of that. Yes, it's a lot more green, but it's a low value. If you check it on the value scale, it's about a value 3, and it's very high chroma. It's really powerful in mixes, strong tinter. So mixed with transparent red oxide, which I'm just putting out here. It's really good for the shadow colors of yellow objects, which our lovely rose is. Whoa, it's getting a bit difficult to get the paint off now. That's Quinacrodone rose, a blue-red. Any blue-red will do. I'm also going to put out some ultramarine blue. Now, this is just because I think I'm going to want to work cloth area to be a little bit more purple. And what, you know what I might put out, just in case I want to push the purple there a little bit more, we'll have a bit of dioxazine purple. Now this is, I'll put that with those colours on the palette so I know what it's there for. So this is like, these are just for the cloth. We are always going to want the chroma droppers raw umber first. I tend not to put out as much of this on a second layer because, you know, most of the space is established in the painting now. So we use less of that in the second layer. And then we want ivory black. And that, I think, is going to pretty much complete the palette, is it? Oh no, we're going to want one more colour. Phthalo green. I don't think there's actually any any leaves to paint in this rose, but this is going to be quite useful, probably for around the vase area. So I'll put a little bit of phthalo out as well. This is Winsor & Newton Windsor green. Well, good. Michelle, you are now officially known as the Chroma Magic Queen. Well, I think that's a very fitting title. Okay, so what do we want to do with this first? In here, in this little jar, I've got a little bit of linseed oil. I've got this with mixed with some solvent. I've got this, terps, but you don't have to use that. You can use Gamsol or something. But I'm not going to put that on yet because before I do, I'm going to sand the surface of this painting a little bit. And the reason I do that is to give it a little bit of key to make sure that the oil takes. But I also like, as regular stream visitors will know, I like to use it to add a little bit of life and texture to the painting. You can see it's kind of introducing a lot of scratches and a lot of interest, and like, you know, a big part of painting is being able to suggest that there's more in the painting that you've actually painted. And one of the nice things about adding texture, like in this way or really any other way, scraping, scratching, is that the marks tend to be a little bit more kind of random, less clean. And that's what life is like. Life is random and it's not clean. It's scratchy and interesting and it has texture and life. And, you know, if you want that in your painting, you have to be willing to break things a little bit. So this is actually already making a kind of a nice feeling around here. Now I know that my vase wants to be a little bit lighter than it is, so I don't mind scratching into that a little bit more. But I'm also going to wipe that down first before I put any oil on it because, you know, obviously I'm lifting a little bit of paint now. But if you find that you, I mean, you don't have to scratch it up this much, but if you find that you're putting oiling out, putting a second oil layer down, then if you find that it beads up on the surface and doesn't cover well, a bit of light sanding first will help give it give the surface a bit of key, a bit of tooth, help it take. So oil, watch the values change now. And that's covering really nicely. All of the depth of the black comes out, all of the beautiful rich chroma of the yellow comes out. Making sure this layer is really, really thin. I'm going to wipe it back. How is the sound today, everybody? Can you let me know how the sound is? I've recently rejigged the mic setup and I'm wondering how it is. I'm thinking about investing in a new higher quality lavalier mic. Yeah, Teddy is such a sweetie. He's absolutely brilliant. But Tansy, who is half border collie and very intense, she's a very intense little girl. She found it very difficult. He's been with us like just over a week now. He was with us for a week to see how things worked out before we officially adopted him. I mean, honestly, it's just a brilliant thing to do. I just feel so good about the fact that we've given this dog a home. But he's been incredibly easy because he was found as a stray, wandering the streets of, I'm not sure where, some UK town. Someone abandoned him, presumably found him a bit much. He's a big lad, to be fair. He eats a lot and he likes to play. But he was really quiet at first. And gradually, Tansy has got used to him bit by bit, then isn't snarling at him all the time, which she was the first couple of days. And he's just really come out of himself, and he's a really fun-loving, vocal dog. It's a huge amount of fun. And he's immediately, already has made our lives richer and more enjoyable, just having him around. But I've been suffering a little bit this week because I haven't been sleeping too well, because we decided that Tansy sleeps on our bed. I know some people think that that's a bad thing to do, you know. Me, I think it's fine having your dog sleep on your bed with you. And we decided to keep that as her safe space. So he was sleeping downstairs, and we didn't want to leave him on his own. So I've been sleeping downstairs with him, which means for a week I've been sleeping on the couch. Not as well as I sleep in my own bed. Linda, that's brilliant. Linda says, I've been volunteering at the local shelter. People should adopt. Yeah, I mean, there are so many dogs out there that need homes now. Okay, let's think about what we're going to do. Where are we going to start? Like, I generally like to start with something which isn't going to break the painting too much if I get it wrong. So I'm thinking about this area here where I want the color to go a little bit cooler and more purple, and I want the value to come up a little bit in places. So rather than pre-mixing a bunch of colors today, I'm going to kind of mix as I go. So I'm going to start, because it's this area, like in the light, I'm going to start off with titanium white because it's much cooler. I'm going to mix in some ivory black, which is a blue-black. You know, ivory black is basically a low chroma blue. I'm probably going to want a little bit more than that. What's the value like? I'm back with one of the kids. It's about a value 7. I think that's probably a little bit too light. I don't think I probably want to go that light. No, that wasn't Teddy saying hello. That was Tansy getting very excited and letting me know that Mum's home. I think Evolve Art is like, you should get in touch with them, Michelle. It's like an online course type of thing. I don't know very much about it, but I do know that a few people who've learned with me have done that course as well. And actually, I like to hear about people learning from other teachers as well as me, because it would be incredible hubris for me to think that I can supply everybody's needs when they're learning to paint. You know, I do the best that I can, but all teachers will give you a slightly different perspective on things. And I actually think it's a really healthy thing for people to learn with different teachers. I think it's a good thing. I'm going to put some dioxazine purple in. Evolve. I think it's like a very kind of a structured sort of an online course. Is that too much purple? I think that's too purpley. I want it to go more blue, so I'm going to put a little bit of ultramarine in as well. Let's just stick some of that on there and see what it looks like. I'll try not to do it too randomly though. Whoa, that's weird, Marsha. You're getting the video from last week. Very strange. I can't imagine why that is. Just check that you didn't check your email, Marsha, because you will definitely have had an email for today's, and maybe you clicked on. Is it possible that you clicked on the link from last time? Right, so that's definitely more bluey purple. It's a little bit lighter, dropping the chrome a little bit. I'm just going to scrape a bit of this around, see what happens. I think we can go more purpley than that. Mixing a darker version now. Black, a bit more purple in it. Mostly what I'm doing here is just trying to change the hue really, but also drop the chroma a little bit of this area around here where the cloth is coming into the light. Let's drop it a bit here with some black, and then I'll rub that back into the shadow. Get more gentle transition. So the reason that I'm putting this kind of purple and blue in and dropping the chroma is because what tends to happen in indoor light, apologies for to everyone who is really used to me talking about light on these streams, but it is like the most important thing about realist painting. What tends to happen is that the lights tend to be a little bit cooler and the shadows tend to be a little bit warmer. Now what I mean by that is, like, if you've got a very low chroma or close to grey object with very little colour in it, like this cloth, what will happen is in the light there will be less colour, but what colour there is will be slightly influenced by the blue of the sky coming reflected off the sky coming in the window, right? So it'll be slightly bluish, which is why I'm adding the blue, the black, and the titanium white, which is a bluish white. And then in the shadow, this was mixed like last week, mostly out of green gold and transparent red oxide. And the shadows are usually, the hue is more towards orange and the chroma is slightly higher. So it's basically a brown, but a brown is just a low value, usually low chroma, as in less intense, orange. Brown is an orange. It's not the new orange, it was always an orange. Just throwing the paint on there. That now I'm happy with that. Like already I'm starting to feel like a little bit more of a depth. And you know, there's a bit more of a feeling of light going on there now. I'm not being desperately careful about what I'm doing. I want the effect of the light. And you know, a lot of painting like loosely and expressively is about getting the right value and the right color down in the right place. And then you can paint really loosely. You don't have to paint all of those folds really carefully, you know, you can be really expressive with the marks. If there are a lot of value mistakes in the painting, has to be said, that doesn't really work. You end up with something that just looks kind of little bit messy. Let me move that light over a little bit more so we've got a little bit of light on, a little bit more light on the panel. So what I like about starting a session like that, as a painting session, is that it means that you're, move it back a bit further, you're into the surface of the painting, you know. Yeah, that's interesting. Michelle says more teachers are using Chroma Magic. I would hope so, because I think it's an incredibly useful teaching tool. But there is some resistance, and there always will be. But some people are resistant to using grids. Some people are resistant to, basically, people have a lot of funny and very set ideas about how painting should be done and what is or isn't art with a capital A. And good luck to them. If it helps them through their day, then fair enough. But to my mind, as a teacher, I'm interested in anything which is going to help the people that learn with me, my students, make the most progress. And Chroma Magic is probably the most useful tool, because if you use it together with the Munsell value scale, the two of them together are incredibly useful as a teaching tool. And you can also learn it yourself. You can teach yourself with it too. Let's have a look at the vase now. So Tanya says, in 1 week it's dry enough to sand. Oh yeah. I mean, depending on what paints you use, it can be ready to work on the next day, or, in a couple of days, Thank you for everybody who's letting me know the sound is okay today. After a week, definitely after a week, you can work over it again. If it was just, say, lead, white, and raw umber and black, then I would be able to work on it the next day. A lot depends on the colours that you're using, and how quick or slow drying they are. And paint makers will often put on their tubes, like, a rough idea of drying times. Just want a little bit more light back here. Very slightly scrape on a little bit of titanium. So one of the things that was bothering me over the week when I was looking at this painting is that I'd lost the clarity of the cast shadow here and this feeling of the light coming in here. I don't actually care whether any of this looks like folds or not. I just want it to feel like it's in front of that. And, I like to see paint. I like to see something which is very obviously paint. I find that exciting. I mean, it's a personal choice, but I like that. And I find the more that I play about with landscape painting, the more freedom I feel there is to bring texture in. Diane says, how old do you think Teddy is? We reckon he's about 1. About 1, we think. He did come with a microchip, but it hadn't been registered to the owner, which is, his original owner, which is also really odd. Just thinking about, sorry, there's going to be a little bit of a pause now when I'm thinking about what I'm going to do next. I think probably the vase next. What do you reckon? Vase next? John says, I just recently finally got around to getting Chroma Magic. Wish I would have done so sooner. Well, you've done it now, John, and that's the main thing. I mean, just I tell you a really good way to use it is to download, if you can find like really good quality copies of old master paintings. Well, not necessarily old master, current master paintings as well, if you want. Like, say, on really good gallery and museum websites, they tend to have high quality digital reproductions. Put them through Chroma Magic and do copies of them. Find out what colors artists were using. It's a brilliant way to learn. So for that, it's incredibly useful for that, and like 100 other things. Like this here is a small block-in of a Fantan Latour painting with none of the detail and just the color, and I used Chroma Magic. That was in a course, actually, one of the workshops, The Secret Life of Flower Paintings. That was done as part of that workshop, and it's a brilliant way to learn about the color that artists use. Yes, of course, it's never going to be exact, you know, because it is a photo of a painting at the end of the day. But the question is not whether it's exact. The question is, you know, I mean, by which I mean perfectly the same as the original. No, it isn't. No photo ever is. So a photo or a scan of a painting certainly isn't. But can you learn from it? That's the bit that matters. And yes, you absolutely can. I'm thinking about this area of the vase here. I want to bring a little bit more light in. Thank you, Jem. I unfortunately couldn't talk all day, though. I'm good for about 2 hours, and then my voice goes. Everybody loves Chroma Magic. You know, I haven't had a single person say to me, yeah, Chroma Magic is rubbish. I tried it and it's rubbish. What do you want to use that for? I've had a lot of people express doubts about it who've never used it. You know, artists love to do that as well. But I haven't had a single person who's used Chroma Magic or you know, done one of my workshops or even a Friday Live, a free Friday Live like this, used Chroma Magic and said, yeah, that was rubbish. Because it's brilliant. PJ says, Paul, you showed a French confit pot on one of your posts and revealed how much you paid for it. I recently bought a 30 centimeter one on eBay. Wanted to check whether it was good price or not. I think I paid 250 quid for mine. And it's about, I mean, how high is it? It's about that, I think. I'm just going to check quickly. No, it's about 20 centimeters high. 250 quid. There you go. So 30 centimeters is good. What did you pay for it? Are you going to share it with us all? They're amazing, those confit pots. Paul says, medium on the palette? No, I don't have any medium. Basically, because I oiled out the painting with linseed oil and a little bit of terps, that's all the medium I need. Sometimes I will dip a brush into the oil. I don't really have any left in there now, so I'm not too bothered about it. Sometimes I will dip a brush into the oil whilst I'm painting, just to kind of work it in, and so I'm not working with a completely dry brush. But no, I don't use any medium at all. Although what we were talking about a medium the other day, I think it was in one of the critique sessions for the school. Someone was talking about Velasquez medium from Rublev and it being a really nice way to build up impastos. Like if you haven't got lead white, if you just use titanium, Velasquez medium. And I've been meaning to try it since. 140 quid plus postage. That is a steal. Email me and let me know. Oh, you got it off eBay, right? Wow. Email me the seller. I want some more confit pots. They're amazing to paint. Absolutely love them. Look, the reason I'm chatting and I'm vacillating is because I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. And, I've just got to do it, basically, haven't I? I've just got to get in there and do something. So let's mix up some green for in here. I know I want it to be a little bit lighter. I'm going to start off with, I know I want it to be low chroma. I'm going to start off with raw umber, and I'm going to bring in lead white, but just a little bit. That's my kind of base, if you like. Now, value-wise, that's probably a little bit too high, but because I've oiled this out, I can put the color on and then I can rub it back. I know I want it to be green, so I'll put some green gold in there and a little bit of phthalo to send it a little bit more blue. Is that more chroma than I want? I don't know, because I'm going to be putting that over some paint. You know what? Let's just put some on there and see what happens. I'm going to put this on. What should I put it on with? Oh, palette knife. Maybe. Let's put it on with a palette knife. I'll use my actual painting knife instead of my mixing one this time. This is what is this? Hobein Series MX. I think it's a number 1. Let's get a little bit of this and put it on. I know it wants to be kind of roughly in a band around here. Now, I know that this is going to be too light when it goes on, but what I'm planning to do is to get the paint on there and then rub it back until I'm happy. I've obliterated my highlight obviously as well, but I can bring that back. I think I might want to do something to kind of show the edge here of the vase, and it's obviously not straight there, so I need to work that, make that straight again. Just trying to work in a little suggestion of light in there. I want to keep this bottom bit very dark. I'd like a hard edge there actually, so I'm going to mix up black, little raw umber and phthalo green, really dark black. I'm going to load this up on one side of the knife. So it's on this side, the right hand as you're looking at it now, but then I'm going to turn it so it's at the lowest part, and I'm going to put it on here. You should be able to get a really hard edge. Nice. I love this kind of, oh, I've spoiled it a bit there. I love this kind of feeling of paint being put on in a way that it describes something, but at the same time, it's has its own kind of abstract qualities too. So I think we probably want a darkish color. The hard edge down here, probably going to be about there. Just going to neaten that up a little bit, and then I'll get some titanium white. I guess you could say I'm feeling my way in. I know we're all here for the rose petals, and I am going to get there, but I'm just kind of warming up first with some slightly less challenging areas, let's say. White, titanium white and black. Do the same thing. If I put my knife down like this, I want it on the right hand side of the knife this time, so I'll scrape up so I've got plenty of paint on the right hand side of the knife there. Well, I definitely got the edge. Paul, you've ruined your painting, it's all wrong. I know, don't worry, we'll sort it out. Wipe it back. I just really wanted to get that edge really strongly there. As we go back into the shadow, it disappears. Oh, there's something nice happening there now. I've kind of destroyed it a little bit. But I want to keep that. Probably not. You could arguably keep it as a kind of an interesting bit of destroying the form, because sometimes, you know, destroying the form a little bit can be nice. So, but no, I'm going to bring the black in up on the other edge to sort that out. Let's wipe that back a little first. Just playing with the paint until it comes right. I find that also a lot of the time, if you get things wrong a little bit, like I just did there, and then you sort it out, quite often by the time you've sorted it out, it can end up making something like slightly more interesting happening in the painting. Oh, I kind of like that actually. Let's live with that for a little while. Bring just the... Well, I don't know. No, maybe I'm going to just live with that a little bit and see. Funny little highlight here. Put this back in. black, create the shape I want. I kind of quite like these highlights to have a slightly random quality to them. I've found, you know, over time, like painting quite a lot of little vases and things, that these highlights tend to work best if they're not too accurately, obviously an attempt to paint a reflection of a window. It's kind of nice. I'm going to bring just a little bit of slightly lighter green in. Just up here to suggest where the edge of the vase is. So all just is suggesting and trying to make interesting shapes at the same time. And then I'm going to get first brush out, nice big Rosemary's flat, get a bit of oil on it, and I'm going to go black, a bit of transparent red oxide to give it some chroma. We'll put a nice dark here. I'm going to use the bottle colour to kind of sculpt that. Gradually getting closer to the rose, bit by bit. And the black around so we have a shadow area. See, I like this. I want this surface to look interesting, you know, even before it's finished. And quite often I find I just like, you know, I'm quite happy with it just looking semi-abstract and interesting. I want to bring this shadow back here. So these big shadow areas, I'm using raw umber and I'm bringing in some green gold and some transparent red oxide to give it some chroma. Because the shadows there do have a little bit more chroma. And I'll just keep fiddling with it until I feel like I've got the kind of feeling that I want. Just working to basically to try and intensify the feeling of the light in everything around the rose, you know, which then helps the rose to live a little bit more. Soften this. So wipe off the brush. And soften. I'm a little bit kind of sort of free flow today. This is like second sessions of a painting for me are often like this, where I kind of figure things out as I go. And sometimes things go a little bit wrong and then you bring them back. But I tend not to paint like this so much when I'm teaching. But then sometimes I do, you know, I have been sometimes more. Because sometimes I think it's good just to see like how a painter would work when they're not teaching, because they're very different things, you know. Teaching and just painting to make a painting are kind of different. And the second session of a painting often feels to me like that's what's happening. It's like it's where it starts to go somewhere new. And I find that what happens a lot in the workshops, where we have paintings where we work on more than one layer, the person's personality, their own kind of way of making marks, and their individual sort of calligraphy of mark making comes out more in subsequent layers after the first layer. The first layer is kind of about getting everything established. Lost this edge of the vase which I created, so I'm going to bring it back in. Starting to get that feeling that I like of like it feels like it's there, but at the same time it's almost, you know, it's semi-abstract and not there. You can see it simultaneously just as paint and as, you know, something real. Sorry, got lost in the painting a little bit there. Not keeping up with the comments. Oh, I do need to sort out this little bit of that ellipse there. Let's just fix that and then I'll catch up. There we go. I think it should be darker there though, shouldn't it really? It's like there's still some shadow, so let's get a little bit of the warmth of the shadow colour coming in there too. I'm much less bothered about it looking like exactly the same as the photo as I am about it feeling like there's depth and light in the, you know, that's starting to come out of the panel, that I can feel the depth. So edge softening. This is a Winsor & Newton set to gold. It's dry, there's no paint on it. I'm just using this to soften some of this. When we go back into the shadow, getting some interesting textures and brush strokes happening up here now. And at the same time now there's a lighter value here. We've got a bit more of a feeling of the light in the vase. A bit more depth. Little adjustments here. So I like this, like I've got some really kind of random paint marks here, which I like a lot because if you look at them closely, they look really random, but if you stand back and squint, it feels like shadow, which is really what I'm after. Yeah, lots of chroma magic discussion and love happening like that. Yeah, for anyone who's watching who's not sure about what chroma magic is, there's a little bit in the description about it that I always put up in my videos now. I just think it's an insanely useful tool. Just get it. I mean, it's like $20. It's less than a tube of paint. And why is it good? Why do I think it's so good? Because it can show you how out your estimations of value and chroma really are. And it can also show you, because it shows you that, it can also show you how to calibrate. I think of it as calibrating your visual system in order to be able to paint better values and better color. And I think it is the best tool out there for that, bar none. it's still fairly new. It's only been out, you know, a couple of years or something, is it, Michelle, now? But I think I wouldn't be a bit surprised if a few years from now everybody's looking back and going like, God, how did we ever survive without it? What, you know, it's made the foundation, the basics of colour, like so much more understandable. That's what I feel. It's like Munsell translated into paint in the most efficient and effective way possible. JB says, I don't have the highlight boldness Paul has. I usually get too nervy. I totally know. I know what you mean. It does take a certain amount of, I guess the word is probably experience, you know, just paint miles, brush miles to get to a point where you feel comfortable doing that kind of thing. You have to be very, very confident of your values, and also to an extent of your drawing, you know. And you need to know that those things are enough to make something live on the panel. And then if you know that and you understand that, you can be a lot freer with how you put things down. I think I want some colour in the background here. Just a little bit. Raw umber. Green gold. Drop the chroma with the black and a little bit of lead white. Let's see what happens. Now I went into the rose there. I'm doing it deliberately so I can wipe it back. I'm being a little bit indulgent today, I will be honest. And I know you're all here to watch me paint the rose, and I'm just enjoying painting everything else. But I kind of feel like the rose is sitting in a more believable space. So, you know, I'm painting everything around the rose, but to me, the rose is becoming more believable as I go. Face says, yeah, are you going to do more on the rose? I am. I'm going to get to the rose. Honestly, I'm just enjoying playing with everything else now. Let's mix up some rose colors. So, kind of the lightest parts of the rose, white and cad yellow. We go a bit towards the shadow areas. Let's mix like a general sort of a shadow area of the rose. That's going to be cad yellow. Like this area around here, it feels like it looks pinkish, but it actually isn't. You know, this is one of the brilliant things about chroma magic. It is a slightly more reddish, slightly more orangish, you could say. But what really changes it there is that more than anything else is that the chroma drops. So I want it to go more red, so I'm going to bring some transparent red oxide in to bring that down. I know I want to be probably like about a value 6. That's another thing you can use chroma magic for. I don't have my phone with me, unfortunately. I forgot to get it out, or I'd show you what I'm doing. But I know I want to drop the chroma, so I'm going to bring in a little bit of raw umber. I don't want to drop it too much, but I do want it to come down. That's looking too yellow now, so I'll bring in a little bit of Quinacrodone rose. Since it's there, bring it back a little bit more red. So I'm looking for a balance. It's an orange basically. You feel it as a pink because it's next to this strong yellow, but it's actually an orange. That's looking possibly a little dark. Let's check my value. I want about a 6. So when I'm teaching stuff like this, I tend to be, well, I am, you know, there's no tend about it. I'm a lot more specific, let's say, about the colours that I'm mixing. Let's try a little bit of that in. But I think there's probably nothing wrong with every now and again you seeing me like paint kind of like this. Is this the right colour? Let's put a little bit on there and see. Yeah. No. Yes and no. I want it to be a bit more orange than that. Bring in some more Quinacrodone rose. But the thing is, I want to be careful that I don't end up with too much chroma, because it's the chroma drop that helps you feel. When I say the chroma drop, the drop in intensity between this area of the rose and this area, that makes you feel that that is the shadow there, that the form has turned. Wow, almost an hour in and I'm only just getting to the rose. Sorry about that. It's just the way it goes sometimes. That's the color. Really beautiful color. That it's just a question of trying to get that subtlety. Just get that color just right, and it will just describe that turn of the form there. Going a bit lighter as I go up to the edge. This, making petal shape. So this is a Rosemary's Angled Eclipse, which is a very nice brush for making these kind of flower shapes. So like at the moment, I want a slightly lighter one here. So this, you can see this brush is the end of it is angled. So I'm getting much more of the paint here on this tip. I'm picking up much more paint there. And then I'm going to paint in a petal here. So, I mean, most of you who are watching this will know I've got a workshop coming, doing this kind of thing, basically. I will be showing you how to do this kind of stuff, like get a color up which is loaded more on one side of the brush than another. To kind of, and then use the brush to create petal shapes. Going to be using these, Rosemary's Angled Eclipses, ivory dagger. So I've actually put together in the materials list Rosemary's. In Rosemary's now you can put together like a brush set, kind of like a wish list. So I put together one of those. Now, if you put all of those brushes together, it's about 100 quid or something. So that's quite a bit of money to be spending on top of a workshop fee. So you don't have to have those brushes to do it. You know, you can do it without them. But obviously, if you can get them, I'm going to be demonstrating those particular brushes. Now, I want about a value 5 back here, and I want a petal shape. See this back petal here? Am I about a 5 here? So the thing is, I'm thinking about the edges of this petal, so I want the hardest edge to be around here to lock in here. So I'm going to bring it in with the sharper edge. Bring it around there, and then I'll paint the back edge of it. The color looks good. Paint the left edge now. And I'll bring the pressure up so that softens a little bit. So you can, I'll just show you actually something quickly you can do with a brush. I'm going to semi-destroy the background for a second, like just to show you this. I think it's worth showing it to you though. So if you load up a brush like with quite a bit of paint, you can start the mark, place the brush, you know, I'm going to drag it down ways, and then as you drag, you can gradually release the pressure. So that you get a hard edge on one side of the stroke and a soft edge on the other side of the stroke. And that's like a basic, it's a basic vocabulary, a building block of the vocabulary of painting petals with brushes, to be able to, within a single stroke, make a hard edge on one side and then a soft edge on the other. If you can do that, and I'm currently working on an exercise that you can do to practice that, then you can, using different brushes, that's the kind of the basic building block, and then using different brushes in different ways, you can create you can evolve over time, you can evolve a vocabulary that helps you paint descriptively. Because just getting a small brush out and trying to create those shapes never works as well, never works anything like as well as if you can kind of use a brush to create the feeling of those shapes, the feeling of the petals. But it's the main thing to be focused on is, once you've got the value and the color right, is the edges. Where do you have a hard edge? Where do you have a soft edge? That's what really makes it sing. Get another of these angled eclipses out to start working some more shadowy areas in. So shadow colors with raw umber, transparent red oxide, some yellow, and then a little white. Thinking like about value 3 probably. And this is going to be, let's bring that. I'm trying to build form, I'm trying to build, not by painting exactly what's there, but by, sorry, I can't talk and do a stroke like that at the same time, but by using it as a starting point and trying to create similar forms. Let's change the shape of this with a shadow, cut into that there. So I've got a harder edge here where these two areas meet, and then it's going really soft here. Also dropping the chroma quite a bit there too. Because it happens in roses anyway, that the outer petals generally have a little bit less chroma than the inner ones. But that's partly what the chroma difference is here. Nice and soft as it comes out to the light. So here the petal actually comes out into the light. So I'm going to use the pointed end this way around and try and get it into that shape. So I'm going to load it up with a lighter color. I'm going to mix it separately because I need plenty of paint on here for this. There's just a little bit of that petal there here in the light. A bit more yellow in it, but it's low chroma still, so I'm checking it with Chroma Magic. It's low chroma still, so I don't want to be putting in a bright yellow. So if I want to drop the chroma, I'm bringing in raw umber, which drops the value, so then I need to bring the value back up with white. I want to be about a value 7-ish, probably, something like that. It's being able to mix and first to see, to recognize, and then to be able to mix these subtle changes of chroma and value and then be able to lay them down. So I'm going to use this pointed, I've loaded up the pointed part here. I'm going to flip the brush around and I'm going to try and bring it out here. So I hopefully get a hard edge on the outside here and a soft edge on the inside, which I'll then be able to soften a little bit more if I'm careful. So harder edge on the outside. Soft on the inside, and it feels like the petals poking out into the light. Bring this back into the shadow. See this light, I don't want this hard edge here, I only want it there. I'll soften that into the shadow. And it feels like the petal is kind of poking a little way out of the light, out into the light. So you're kind of using the stroke to create the form. And it actually works much better to paint this way, to paint flowers this way, than like trying to paint that exactly with a teeny tiny brush. It tends not to work very well. Get this really light bit in here. And then we've got a nice hard edge here where the petal comes out into the light. And then on the outside round here, I'm just following it round like. Palette knife is very good for getting a hard edge on, really hard edge, you know, on the outside of something. And then I want this to disappear softly into the shadow on this side, right? So I get my softening brush out and I pull just this end into the shadow. Keep it coming round hard here. I've got another one here. Not actually there, but I think it will help to show the form. Then I'm going to cut back into this with black to refine these shapes. Here. Something bothering me around here about this colour here doesn't feel like it's working quite right. It's too orange, I think. So this is where the green gold and the transparent red oxide pairing together comes into it. With the green gold, I can pull that shadow a little bit more towards yellow, basically making it a little bit more green. And I'll use it to clarify the shape of this petal here if I'm careful. Oh no, picked up entirely the wrong colour there. Wiped my brush on a dirty bit of cloth and got entirely the wrong colour in the wrong place. No, we don't want that there. Because here we're coming back out into our kind of what looks like slightly pinkish, but is actually just a lower chroma with a little bit more of the red in it. So this is almost white here, where I'm white with a little bit of yellow in it. And I'm going to get the edges that I want on the left side of these petals, and then with a knife, and then I'm going to soften the side that goes into the flower. So I'm not bothered about this edge on the right hand side. I'm only looking at the left hand edge and trying to create this feeling of this petal coming out of the shadow. So I'll get the edge down first, and then I'll treat everything around it. Probably brought the value up a little bit too high. Let's go. Now I'm going to get a small round out because I want to use it. It's a fairly small space I'm working in. So this left hand side, which is too hard at the moment, I'm going to soften that so that it feels like it's coming out of the shadow into the light. So where you have the edge of a form against a shadow, which is the left-hand edge of these petals, you want a hard edge. Where it curves gradually into the shadow, you want it to gradually soften away. And you create the kind of the impression of the form without actually painting all of it, you know. I'll tell you someone who I think is a real master at this, certainly better than I am, because it's basically what she's devoted her life to. If you haven't come across them, I'm sure most of you have, but if you have a look at the paintings of Kathleen Speranza, Kathy Speranza, I'll put her name in the chat because it's really worth checking out. If you like flower paintings, contemporary flower paintings, she is without a doubt one of the best living flower painters. I can spend a lot of time looking at Kathy's flower paintings. And she works in a lot of layers. It's a similar technique to this, I think, in a lot of ways, in that she oils out between each layer. But she works in multiple layers. Like more layers than I do, and she gets this incredible depth. She's also a really nice person, which, you know, helps too. So I want a hard edge on the right hand side this time, so I'll put the edge down and then I'll soften it into the flower on the left hand side. Getting a little bit too low chrome. See that? So then you end up with like a hard edge on the outside, on the right hand side, and a soft edge on the inside. It's just a really beautiful way to describe form. The form of flowers, it's all about these, the hard and soft edges. Another good painter to look at, who's a really good flower painter. It unfortunately has passed away now. Oh, and I've forgotten his name. How can I have forgotten his name? Just because I find that happens a lot to me when I'm painting, is I forget words and I forget people's names. Oh, come on, help me out here. Who's the guy who paints those amazing peonies? Used to paint those amazing peonies and peony roses. Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. So same thing here. Look, I want a hard edge on the left and a soft edge on the right. It's easier to see it here, actually. You can see how that kind of starts to create the feeling of these petals, right? And a lot of this is happening with the brush, with the palette knife, sorry. Put the stroke down, put the shape down, and then affect it with the brush. Here I want the hard edge on the right-hand side and the soft edge on the left. So I'm being led by the photo, but I'm not copying it. Does that make sense? It's very hard. I find it very hard to paint and remember something that I'm having trouble recalling at this the same time. So I'm gradually working towards the center of the rose, you know, kind of creating the form around it. Dennis Perrin, thank you. Dennis Perrin, yeah. His paintings are kind of quite abstract in a way. And he uses a lot of flat brushes. And you can see the marks that those flat brushes make very clearly in his paintings, like these kind of brushes. Let's find one. It's these like long flats with quite a lot of spring to them. This is Rosemary's Ivory. I don't know if he actually uses these brushes, but the marks in his painting look very like the kind of marks you get with those brushes. And he has evolved a very personal way, or had evolved a very personal way of putting those marks down so that he could create the kind of thing that I'm doing here, but I get the impression that he did it without any of the extra softening. He just did it. Where he would get a hard edge, where he wants a hard edge on the edge of the form, and then softer edge on the other side. And he does it by the one time I've actually watched a video of him paint, he does it with that, pretty much that technique that I was showing you, like you put the brush down, a heavily loaded brush down, and then lift it off as he drags a curve. And you get these really quite beautiful brush strokes that are not actual petals. They don't look exactly the same, you know, as the actual flower, but they create the feeling of it. They create the impression of it. And it's all down to the edges. It's all down to the edge control. I mean, his color is extremely good as well, you know. Look at something. Kathy says, Kathy with a C, Kathy Forrest says, Kathy, i.e. Kathleen Speranza, is a god of edge handling. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Adam says, sorry, I'll catch up with a few comments now. Adam says, do you find it easier to do the first step and let it dry before doing the flower details? Maybe keeps things from getting too muddy. Yeah, totally. So this is like basically my approach to this kind of thing. And it's also the approach that I'm going to be teaching in this workshop that I've got starting soon. Is you start, you begin by creating the basic form, you know, the light and the shadow of in very simplified terms of the basic form. So this was like a flower, basically. Sorry, this was a bowl. I'm thinking about something else and trying to talk at the same time, which is never a good plan. I'm looking at part of the flower and thinking how I might be able to paint it. Yeah, so we made this as a bowl first, a really simplified version of the shape, right? And then and then begin to work in the smaller forms like the petals, bit by bit, into that basic kind of bowl shape. It is a really, really effective way to develop a painting. And when you're working with something as complex as flowers, which it is a challenge, there's no two ways about it. It's basically the best way to build them up is to start with something very simplified, and then the challenge after that point is to start to bring in the smaller forms without losing the big form. So keeping that impression of the bowl, because if you lose that, basically the painting will no longer work. It will fall apart. You have to be able to bring in the smaller forms and still keep that impression of the bowl, the big form. So this is, the point I'm at with this painting now, if this were an ordinary painting session, I would probably be working for maybe another 2 or 3 hours. Obviously, I'm not going to stay here and stream for 2 or 3 hours, because I think you'd get really bored, wouldn't you, basically? Maybe you'd like it. Maybe people would like it if I sat and just did a painting session like I normally do. Like the longest I'll ever go for in a session, I reckon, is about 4 hours. That's about the most that I'm ever good for. After which time I really have to stop. I can't focus any longer than that. I would start to paint without thinking about what I'm doing, and create shapes that are wrong and don't work as part of a painting, And when you get to that point, when you start to feel that happening, it's time to stop. So what I'm trying to show you is, this is how slowly I would normally work once I get to the second stage of a painting. If it's something complex like this flower is, trying to create the forms. It's slow. It's slow work, So I'm trying to add things which are going to emphasize the feeling of the bowl. So I want it to be darker on the right hand side. And I'll actually overemphasize that. Because we've got this indentation here in the middle of the rose, and the light is coming from the top right, so this side will be darker than this side. So I'll overemphasize that in order to kind of get a stronger feeling of form in the painting, because you're up against it when you're painting like this, They're difficult forms to paint. So this is the Rosemary's Ivory Flat. I'm going to use this to bring in some kind of smaller highlight areas. I want the paint to be pretty thick here. And I'm going to mostly bring them in on the right hand side, even though they're in the left as well. Because if I bring them in here, it raises the overall value of the left hand side, not the right. It raises the overall value of the left hand side, which is good because I want this to feel like there's more light hitting here, So I'll overemphasize what's already happening in the reference photo in order to kind of create this stronger, hopefully a stronger feeling of the form. Laura Arroz. Oh, I'll look her up, thank you. Lilliman says, I'm so delighted with this. I wish I could travel to go to your workshop. Actually, you don't need to travel because I only teach online. Basically, what you see now is the basic setup that I use when I'm teaching live. With the main difference that obviously you would get a reference photo beforehand, and Something I'm not quite happy with around here. I think because I've been talking too much while I've been painting, I've lost the character of the shape a little bit there. That would need sorting out. Yeah, so I teach online, so all my workshops are online, so you don't have to travel anywhere at all. Anne says 5 hours would be okay. Wow. That would be long. Oh, I didn't know that, Fran. Thank you. Frank says Dennis Perrin used water-soluble oils and Rosemary's Shiraz brushes. They do look nice, those Shiraz brushes. Thanks for that, Fran. Thank you, Deborah. Diane, thank you for that. So, Diane said, will you ever do a course on brush handling alone? You are a master at it. I don't know if I'd say I'm a master at it. I don't think you could ever, you know, I'm constantly trying to evolve it. It's a little bit like my violin teacher says to me, like intonation on the violin is a really, it's the trickiest thing to get, like being able to play in tune on the violin, because there are no, there's no frets, you know, so you've got to get your finger down in the right place. Otherwise it sounds horrible, right? She says to me, intonation isn't something that you ever finish with. It's not something that you can ever say, right, I've got that sorted out now, I can do that. It's something that you're constantly working on. And she's amazing. You know, you hear her play, it's just jaw-dropping. But she says, yeah, you know, she's still working on her intonation. She's still trying to improve it. And it's like that with your brush handling, I think. You know, your what I call a brush calligraphy. It's like that with that too. It's not something that you can ever say, yeah, I've got that cracked now. It's something you're always trying to evolve. And the more you work on it, the more personal it becomes. The more it becomes like a part of you. You know, your own kind of way of making marks. But yeah, so you asked if definitely something is bothering me around here. I feel like the strokes have become a little bit too rounded and they're not so descriptive anymore. They need a little bit more work. I'm happy with the colour there, but not so much with the shape. Would I ever do a course on brush handling alone? Probably not. I guess I could make a small, like a recorded course on it. But the workshop, which is coming up, is a flower painting workshop. Going to start on the 18th of August. And we're basically going to paint, like paintings like this, about 8 by 10, 10 by 8, smallish paintings. Mostly going to be teaching simplification of the form, but with an added element of like actually giving you some exercises to develop brush handling, like this kind of way of brush handling. So that's going to be a big part of the course, of the workshop. So I'm going to be demonstrating the use of particular brushes to make specific marks. And obviously we're going to be using Chroma Magic to get the basic block in. But they're all going to be one session paintings, with the exception of one which I'm going to do like a second layer on like this. It is actually, I've just opened it for sign up. I'll put a link in the chat actually, if you want to have a look and see what it's about. You can have a look at this page, and you can also sign up for it because it is open now. Marcia says Rosemary's Master's Choice is my favourite. I like those, but I found that they, I think they're Badger, aren't they? Badger hair, the Master's Choice, and I found that they didn't last very well. I think Rosemary's brushes really shine in the synthetics, not so much with the natural brushes. But maybe I should try them again and see. Maybe it's just been a little bit too long. I'm going to try and bring in. Get a good brush for this, a synthetic flat. This is a Winsor & Newton Scepter Gold. I'm going to bring in a bit more around this edge. I'm going to kind of like carve out a little bit more form around this outside edge here. Because the outside edge is a lot of where you can kind of create the impression of detail that you haven't actually painted. As long as as long as the colors are working well, Do some like really tiny little forms, almost like frills, around the outside. And it's amazing how much, oh, the dog's trying to get in. It's amazing how much difference that can make. Christina says, what size in the Eclipse and Ivory do you like the best? The Eclipses, I have two lots. I have a few of the 1/2 inch, these ones, and I have a few of the 1/4 inch, and I almost never use the 1/4 inch ones. These 1/2 inch ones are really good. I really like those. 1/2 inch seems to be a really good size for a lot of things. Which would be like a size 6 in a lot of brushes, for synthetic flats anyway. For the ivory flats, I use like a range. This one, size, what's this, 16? Basically about 1 inch across the ferrule. I love this for big blocking in backgrounds at the start really strongly. This one I've been using today, this is a 10, excuse me, which I've used mostly around here, in these areas in the background. But when I'm actually into something like this, I'm using mostly this one, which is a 4. I also really like it's really, really useful to have one of these, like a big watercolor wash brush, really, really soft, just to do kind of, if you want to soften something as it goes back into shadow, this is brilliant. Really light pressure, you can just really soften something, get a real variation of kind of finish. Just trying to work slowly and gradually evolve these forms. This probably I would be working on if I was going to be kind of bringing it to a finish, probably be working on it for another hour or two, something like that, I imagine. But what I wanted to demonstrate for you today is like a basic kind of approach, like how I would go about, bringing something to a higher sort of level of definition. But the point is that none of this really matters. None of it really works if you don't have the strong form with accurate color at the start. And this started, this row started with almost no, it's like three colors, I think, maybe 4 tops I mixed to start it. And that really is all you need. And then that gives you a really strong foundation for creating everything else. But if you don't have that at the start, as I say, then it's very difficult to kind of try and build it in later. You basically, you will really struggle. So the simplification is, it's like the brushwork and this kind of stage feels like that's the bit where you're doing most of the work. But actually the important part of the painting is the first stage. That's the bit that matters the most. Yeah, so this workshop coming up is going to be more about, there's going to be more focus on the brush handling and this part of it than I've ever put into a workshop before, for sure. I feel like this has got a bit dark there and too low chroma. Am I right? Yeah. So it's not only about that, it's, obviously it's about other parts of the painting as well, especially that strong foundation, making that strong foundation at the start. One bit of the painting is bothering me, and it's this. I want this to be knocked back a little bit. Still a little bit bright. I'm trying to be very careful because I don't want to muck up this edge. I really like that edge there. So I'm trying to bring it down without messing up that edge. I don't think I can do that any further without messing up that edge anymore. So I'm gonna leave it there. Gentle bit of softening in the shadow side. There we go. I'm going to leave this one here for today. I hope that was interesting anyway to watch, to chat about. I hope you enjoyed the session. Hello, Thomas. We're just wrapping up. Nice to see you, though. Thanks for coming in. Yeah, so have a look at that workshop. If you're on my email list, I will be sending out some stuff about it soon. And also watch out for the email about the little free course that I've got coming up next week. I'm going to do basically like a dry run of what the workshop is, pretty much, in a single session with a follow-up recorded video as well. So you should have had, if you're on the email list, you should have had an email about that. Still haven't gone back to that. Remember we started the painting of the, really a kind of abstract painting of the rock trumpet. Very different feeling to this one. Maybe go back to that one next week. We shall see. Anyway, thank you very much for coming along. Lovely to see you all. Have a great weekend. If you've been painting, don't forget to wash your brushes straight away. No excuses. Get the olive oil soap out. Thank you very much, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.